Is Iraq becoming President Obama's quagmire? The uproar over a word and a concept with devastating political implications. This is Special Report. Good evening, I'm Doug McKelway in for Brett Baer. For Americans of a certain age, few words are as chilling or damning as the one famously applied to the perceived hopelessness of the Vietnam War, quagmire. Tonight, Fox News has learned exclusively that among those now using that word to describe President Obama's dilemma in Iraq are senior intelligence officials inside the Obama administration. Chief Washington correspondent James Rosen has tonight's top story from the White House.
Internal documents obtained by Fox News show that top aides to the director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, Marine Corps Lieutenant General Vincent Stewart, last week struck the word quagmire from draft testimony about Iraq that was being prepared for Stewart to deliver on Capitol Hill. The documents make clear that the director himself agrees with DIA's top Mideast analysts that the situation in Iraq is a quagmire, a bloody stalemate into which the U.S. is sinking an increasing volume of resources with no real prospect of victory, but that senior DIA officials considered the term too political.
Is Iraq today a quagmire?
Well, James, that's not the word that I would use to describe it. Iraq is a chaotic place. At the same time, because of the commitment of the central government in Iraq to unify that country and to govern in a multi-sectarian, inclusive way, there is promise for Iraq's future.
The DIA documents show that top analysts there have concluded that the campaign to defeat ISIS is foundering because there is no political reconciliation in Iraq right now, and because the Sunni forces President Obama wants to train and equip, quote, do not trust America.
Are we winning? Are we losing? Is it a stalemate? Is it a quagmire?
We are on path to deliver that which we've committed to delivering, which is security forces, not just the ISF, but also the Peshmerga and now the Sunni tribes. We are on path to deliver to them the capability to confront ISIL inside of their sovereign territory.
The critical ingredient of the strategy is strengthening local forces. We believe that is possible. It'll take some time.
A defense analyst at MIT is also invoking the specter of quagmire, saying the president's small-scale, slowly escalating approach in Iraq recalls the early days of Vietnam.
One of the reasons you might be hearing from the intelligence agencies some concern that we're entering a quagmire is because in this case we do know how complicated the place is.
A spokesman at the Defense Intelligence Agency did not respond to multiple requests for comment. Asked today if the Sunni forces have a trust issue with the United States, White House spokesman Josh Earnest conceded there are some who may have some doubts about the United States and its intentions. Doug?
James Rosen on the North Lawn. Thank you, James. One day after a bombastic announcement of his presidential intentions, Donald Trump hit the campaign trail, and he brought his usual take-no-prisoners flair to the crucial precincts of New Hampshire. Chief political correspondent Carl Cameron is in Manchester tonight. Good evening, Carl.
Hiya, Doug. It's a pretty sizable crowd here at the Manchester Community College in the Queen City. For Donald Trump, it is obviously his inaugural trip to the First of the Nation primary state, and because of his bombastic rhetoric, Granite State voters know wherever he goes, it's guaranteed to be entertaining.
Known as the Donald, billionaire businessman Donald Trump, now a presidential candidate, has already proven himself a disruptor, flaming fellow candidates last night in Iowa.
You know, these politicians give up nothing. They run, they lose, they win. You got these people, they're losing elections. Now they decide to run for president. I watched Jeb Bush yesterday.
Thank you all.
He can't even put on a tie and jacket. He's running for president.
New Hampshire's First of the Nation primary voters like a political show, but often stay notoriously undecided till the last week. A reality TV star, Trump knows how to grab attention, and based on current polls, may qualify in the top 10 for the first debate 7 weeks from now and push other contenders out of eligibility. He singled out former Senator Rick Santorum, who lost his re-election in 2006, then came in a distant second for the Republican presidential nomination in 2012, and separately businesswoman Carly Fiorina, who once unsuccessfully ran for Senate.
I won't say who, but they lose by they lose by these massive margins. And then they say, oh, that's okay, now I'll run for president.
Meanwhile, former Florida Governor Jeb Bush, on his first visit to the leadoff caucus state of Iowa since officially joining the race, visited the Hawkeye State town of Washington, making the point that their priorities are more important than the special interests in Washington, D.C.
I imagine you're going to hear a lot of that because there's a big divergence these days between the Washington, Iowas of our country and Washington, D.C.
Asked about his support for immigration reform that would grant legal status to some undocumented immigrants already here, Bush stuck to his guns and took a shot at Scott Walker and Marco Rubio, who've scaled back their support for that policy.
You can't bend with the wind. We see candidates that had views that are kind of moving away from them on our side. It's not in my nature to do that.
And back here in Manchester, Trump's candidacy gives Republicans some pause. Not because he's likely to win the nomination, but they're worried that he's a lightning rod and controversial and may say or do something that could embarrass the party and cause them to have to answer for him or whatever that controversy might be. There was a little bit of that just a short moment ago. Someone in the audience was beginning to make noise and trouble. Some of the Trump campaign staff have suggested that he was here earlier today and identified by security as a potential threat. He was removed from the room, taken to the rear of the building by three gentlemen who appeared to either be security or perhaps even retired law enforcement, wrestled to the ground and held there for a number of minutes, complaining that he couldn't breathe and they were being too rough. Local PD has now come to the scene and they are taking care of the situation, but Mr. Trump has been delayed, perhaps in no small part because of this one little incident, which seems to have been handled but isn't over. And here he is in New Hampshire just a few minutes late. Last night in Iowa he was almost an hour and a half late, so we got plenty of time to wait for him here tonight, Doug.
All right. Carl, let us know who this guy is if you're able to find out. Thank you. More concerns tonight about the accuracy and security of high-level information coming to and from Hillary Clinton while she was Secretary of State. Here's Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge.
The 9-hour deposition of Democratic insider Sidney Blumenthal revealed intelligence sent to then-Secretary of State Hillary Clinton on her private email account was not vetted.
And he has no idea about the credibility or reliability of any of the sources.
In his defense, Blumenthal emphasized the source was credible, a retired CIA officer who was pursuing business interests in Libya.
I thought might be informative to Secretary Clinton for her to use or not, as she saw fit.
The surprising and damaging revelations come as new emails challenge Mrs. Clinton's claim that she did not put national security at risk by using a personal account.
I did not email any classified material to anyone on my email.
That claim has been hard to test because emails released by the State Department are heavily blacked out. But the same email chain obtained by Fox News shows Mrs. Clinton used her personal account to discuss high-level negotiations in 2011 to set up a no-fly zone over Libya to help topple its dictator Muammar Gaddafi. This email for senior administration staff, including then-Deputy National Security Advisor Dennis McDonough, goes point by point, explaining what Turkey, France, and Britain will likely accept. Clinton's aide writes, "I will forward you the Turkish proposal momentarily." Clinton responds, "I'm worried that France and or the UK know about the Turks' idea and want to derail it." Bolton suspects a lot of intelligence was pushed out as unclassified to accommodate her separate private system.
It's not simply the effect on Secretary Clinton's own email. It's pervasive throughout the higher levels of the department, which simply magnifies the risk.
These emails deal with the military operation as well as administration strategy. Current and former government officials say that is the most valuable information a foreign intelligence service could steal, Doug.
Thank you, Catherine.
You're welcome.
Let's get more now on the Clinton campaign from the man who is following it for us. Chief White House correspondent Ed Henry is here tonight. Ed, despite these new questions about her email, Hillary Clinton was talking pretty big today about winning this race.
Yeah, she was. Hillary Clinton in the key early state of South Carolina pushing a tax credit to deal with youth unemployment, which has been stubbornly high under President Obama. She declared she's not only going to secure the Democratic nomination, she'll win the general election twice. Listen.
I hope that at the end of my 2 terms as president, I will have overseen. don't tell my husband I'm about to say this, but I will have overseen an even bigger peacetime expansion of the economy than my husband did, and he had the biggest peacetime expansion in our history.
No, not so fast, according to the Quinnipiac University Swing State poll. It found she's still deeply underwater on the question of honesty in key battleground states. Ohio, for example, 53% of voters said she's not trustworthy. 40% said she is. Her campaign manager, remember, over the weekend said there are no polls saying she's not trustworthy. Think again, there are several.
So despite her confidence about winning the general election, is there any sign at all that she does not have the Democratic nomination locked?
Well, there's one poll the Clinton team woke up to today that was pretty alarming. Bernie Sanders, who's been holding these town halls in key states with 1,000 people eclipsed sometimes, is now just 10 points behind in the key state of New Hampshire. A Suffolk University poll has Clinton at 41%, Sanders at 31%. Now, most analysts discount a Democratic Socialist chances, but is that poll a smoke signal that might be going out to other more powerful Democrats that she could be beatable, Doug?
Just a snapshot. An early one.
Early.
Thank you, Ed.
Good to see you, Doug.
Coming up next, why some heavy hitters here in America are fighting over Russian rocket engines. But first, here's what some of our Fox affiliates around the country are covering tonight. WSFX in Wilmington, North Carolina, with updates on the youngsters who were bitten by sharks on Sunday. That 12-year-old boy who lost his left arm says he will not let that injury slow him down.
Try to fight and live a normal life with the cards I've been dealt.
And the 16-year-old girl whose left arm was amputated will not lose her leg, as it turns out. Her parents say she is in good condition. Fox 35 in Orlando, Florida, where two boys are being hailed as heroes after rescuing a pair of small children from a fire. Isaiah Francis and Jeremiah Grimes grabbed an infant and an 18-month-old from a house next door and took them to safety. Firefighters rescued two other kids inside the home. And this is a live look at Dallas from Fox 4 there. The big story there tonight, flash flood watches and warnings as tropical depression now, Bill, rolls through the Metroplex. It has already dumped more than 11 inches of rain near the Texas coast southwest of Houston. So far, no major damage or injuries reported. That's tonight's live look outside the Beltway. For Special Report, we'll be right back.